Hi, I'm Megan Walker, and welcome to 365 Community Chats. So what is this? Well, it's a podcast and YouTube video series where I sit down and chat with members of the Power Platform, Dynamics, and Microsoft community. So sit down, get comfy, and let's catch up with someone. In episode 3 of 365 Community Chats, I had the opportunity to sit down with Mark Smith, aka NZ365 Guy. Mark is a Microsoft Power Platform Evangelist for IBM covering New Zealand and Australia. He's also the creator of the hugely successful 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, offering guidance, mentorship, and a chance for people to further their careers to hundreds of people in the Dynamics and Power Platform community, myself included. Let's find out how Mark is doing these days. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good to see you again.
It just feels like it's another lifetime ago, doesn't it? When we were all going to these events in England, and you were over here, and it's like another world, isn't it?
I know. And who would have predicted just the outcomes of so many things?
To be fair, I'm not saying you're a great predictor of everything, but I remember before things were starting to be cancelled, and you were kind of like the voice that was saying, nah, I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. And then sure enough, everything just kind of got cancelled. So one of the things that I loved, obviously it wasn't for a great reason, but I loved seeing that series of videos you did when you had first gone into lockdown in New Zealand, and you kind of started with this bit of land and a bit of a shed, a livable shed. But you've got a bit of a compound now, haven't you?
Yeah, it's advanced a long way. In fact, I think that my neighbors around me think I'm a bit crazy because, most people don't want to overinvest in their land, but we bought our property with the intention never to sell it. I've put a trust over the property for 99 years, and not even my children are allowed to sell it in my rules.
Wow.
That I put on it. And the reason is that the name of the property is called Ahuru Mowai, which is a Maori word for a resting place, a place of peace, that you can come to. Mm-hmm. Sorry, my barista's just delivering me a coffee. Oh, my barista being my lovely wife. And so, that's the name of the property. And so I'm setting it up in such a way that it will be a place where if people need to escape the rat race and, particularly family, friends, this will always be a place that they can come to. And when I moved into this barn, you're right, at the start of lockdown, there was no water, no running water. There was one power point and one light switch. That means no toilet. And my wife and I, we were living next to the Microsoft office in Auckland because she works at Google, and which is right next door as well. And when you'd caught her, and we decided that we weren't going to do lockdown in Auckland. So when they announced it was going to happen, we thought it'd be better to live in an empty barn than that. So we moved here, chemical toilet. We did it rough. And through that time, I read all the building regulations on how to build because I'd never built before. And
really? No previous knowledge or experience?
No. So I just read all the codes and whatnot. And when we knew lockdown was coming out, which was about 2 months later, I had a big order of all the timber, for Americans, lumber, that I was going to need to build with. And
that's just wood.
Just wood. And wood. I had a truck arrive with it all, and then I spent the next 6 months just building. And so now people come to it and go, oh my gosh, this is like an architecturally designed barn, like alternate living. Are you going to Airbnb it and all that type of stuff? And the last thing I want to do is have randoms come and live near me in it, because I'm building a house next door. That means that this barn that, is now a 2-bedroom, fully equipped bar, a full home theater built in now with 7.1 surround sound and massive views out to the Pacific Ocean. That'll be a place for our friends to come and hang out when they want to. So that's the plan.
So do you think you will ever be finished with it, or do you just see it as just you'll continually sort of add and improve things to it?
Yeah. So it's 1.5 acres, and I'm getting heavily into a thing called permaculture, which is basically get rid of the grass and replace it with native and fruit-bearing trees. So I've planted 16 fruit trees this autumn. This winter, spring, I planted those. And I'm creating what are called guilds around those, which are co-companion planting. I've, put a big garden in. I've got my greenhouse just about in its last stages of completion. So it will be it's a 10-year project to get, this 1.5 acres all to become a food forest, which will have, various nooks and crannies. There'll be art sculptures and stuff in it. There'll be a walkway through it. And
goodness me.
Yeah, a long thing. And, hey?
That would be £2, please, to come in on
so, friends and family free.
So you also have before we sort of dive into some sort of Microsoft Power Platform type things, you have a new addition?
Yes, I have a Poppy. She is about 1 year and 2 weeks old now.
Wow.
So, and she is a lot of joy. And surprisingly, this is the first morning that she's still asleep in the other room. What is it, 6:30 my time here? She's normally up around 5. So it was pleasant. Lots of surprises for the 1st of December. It's a great day.
Oh, good. That's wonderful. Yeah, I love seeing photographs of it. So she's very, very cute. Must get that from Megan.
Get it from Megan, exactly. And of course, her coming into the world wasn't an easy process. We went through IVF and had to go through a whole series of things not working out as intended, and it was like a 6-year process in the end, that it took us, the journey it took us on, but we are very happy with the outcome.
Good. I'm really happy for it. It's a tough journey, so when it's successful and that's the end, that's it's a beautiful thing. So you've had another change career-wise.
So after 4 years of being retired, see this IBM. After 4 years of being retired, and I say I was retired when IBM asked me to go and work for them. I wasn't really retired, right? I've been working for Microsoft and on contract for some time in Seattle, and in fact, I still am here. I moonlight now for them as well on top of my day job. And IBM, traditionally been a competitor, very strong competitor to Microsoft. In fact, one of the projects that I was on around 2015, 2016 was to build a big security platform for customs and border protection in Australia. Okay. And I was involved in that from the very first day of doing a ride along, or what they call a fly on the wall experience of really understanding what the customer was doing and what they wanted to achieve. And I was, it was a traditional government agency, and traditional government agencies have a lot of traditional software systems. And so in this case, a lot of IBM systems. In fact, a lot of IBM architects were permanently on the payroll in these agencies. And so when we proposed, building apps on Dynamics 365 back then, with a rapid development type process, the biggest voice inside these accounts were the IBM architects saying, Microsoft's not enterprise. Oh, no, you need enterprise software like, what IBM provides. So, I competed heavily and won against them in that scenario. And I only saw IBM as, competitors to Microsoft. They hated Microsoft. And then what's happened is that, if you look at all the IT companies in the world, the longest standing IT companies are around 40 years old, right? Microsoft's gone through its 40th birthday, etc. IBM's 110 years old, right, as a company. And what they are the masters of are reinventing themselves. And that's what they've done through history. And right now, they're going through a massive reinvention. They've sold off all this old part of their business that just got sold about a month and a half ago, called Kyndryl, multi-billion-dollar type spin-off, and it's its own company. And so what it meant is that all that legacy part of IBM, to a degree, is going, to one side. And what they've done is that they realized that they weren't going to win the cloud wars. When we look at who are the major players in cloud, we have Azure, of course, the best cloud, possible. And then we have, a distant runner-up, something called AWS or something. And we have, of course, the Google Cloud Platform, which is really probably in third place here. And I say that quietly because my wife works for Google in the other room.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, so what IBM did, realize that the IBM cloud was never ever going to compete at that game. And so what they've done is pivoted, and they've become what they call hybrid cloud. And what they do is they help companies that are running all those three clouds at the same time in their businesses. And so they facilitate that. But one of their big transitions then across Australia and New Zealand was to set up a Microsoft Business Applications practice.
Okay.
And so we came in thinking we were going to teach them how to run a BizApps business. And what they did is they went out and hired all the people I had worked with from 2014 to 2017. So all the key leadership team in the company, which we've been massively successful in Australia, they hired that whole team from the various companies they work from. So we all came together. So basically I've got all the folks that I used to work with back then together.
Oh, wow.
As you can imagine, they've got, we have to hire in the next 12 months over 60 staff in country. That's the targets on us. And of course, we'll build a $30-40 million business in that time.
So have they already done this in other countries, or is this kind of like a starting point? And then
so this is what surprised me. When we get in here and we're like, okay, let's do an inventory take. What do we got? What we found is that in China, over 300 BizApps people on the payroll. In India, over 700 BizApps people on the payroll.
Wow.
Philippines. And that story goes on. And most of that is all servicing European customers.
Okay.
Yeah. So incredible number of resources. And we work on a 3-tier model, what's called nearshore, offshore, and then in person. So we have these innovation centers, and the nearshore one in Australia has around 2,000 staff in it. Big numbers, right? 350,000 employees in IBM. It's not a small company. In fact, when we look at our Microsoft certifications, we've got over 10,000 certifications.
Oh, God, wow.
So it's mind-blowing. And so we didn't expect that coming in here, right? That we'd have all that capacity already. And then, the largest Power Apps deployment in the Southern Hemisphere is our client, and we're doing all that work, which is for a major mining company in Australia. Well, global mining company. Okay. And when we looked at what had been built, it's like high quality stuff. This is not like people tinkering around the edges. This is quality. We get a net promoter score of 10 out of 10 with these customers. And so they're loving what we're doing. But this is the thing. IBM is this massive secret, right? And IBM is, I always said Microsoft never really knew how to market itself. IBM absolutely doesn't know how to market itself.
Well, that's what I said to you when I saw the logo. I'm like, that's the first time that I think maybe I'm just not that observant. But I don't, only because my brother worked for IBM when he first came out of university. But other than that, it kind of just is just quiet in the background. You're like, oh, are they still a thing? Are they still around?
And this is the thing. One of the things someone said to me coming in, for all the number of people that walk around in suits in the organization, of course, I never see that because in COVID, I've only been here in COVID, so you don't see anybody in person, is that they've got just the same number of business people working in the business. They've got the same number of people working in white lab coats. Because what IBM is massive at, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong if you're listening to this, but IBM create more patents a year than any other company in the world. So their R&D divisions are absolutely phenomenal around the world. And so I'm not exposed to any of that. So it's exciting times for us because we get to build with the backing of a massive company that has the type of stats they have, which governments do we work for in the world? 100%, all of them, that have been on their books. And you go into accounts where IBM's been serving the company for 30 years. So the whole thing around building credibility and stuff is very powerful when you have a brand like IBM behind you. So, so we're on a journey of really dominating this whole space. My focus at the moment is extending the Power Platform. Extending SAP with the Power Platform.
Okay.
So, SAP systems of record, big traditional systems. IBM is one of the biggest, if not the biggest implementer of SAP globally, and very big in Australia. And so our job is to, of course, create these amazing experiences over data. And the Power Platform allows that, automations over data, RPA. It gives us so much flexibility in what we can do with the Microsoft skill set. In fact, it was the SAP division that brought us into the company because they saw a tremendous, when they looked at all the low-code platforms, they saw Microsoft was the market leader, based on their scale, as well as being in that leadership quadrant from an analyst point of view. And so, there's so, this is, 3 years ago, I'd never thought about SAP wrapped with Power Platform, but now, I'm looking at IBM mainframes wrapped with the Power Platform. I'm looking at, Oracle systems wrapped with the Power Platform. The Power Platform gives us this massive tool set that allows us to go in and, do a couple of things. It allows us to create experiences over data, good experiences, right? People working with these systems generally are not overjoyed about these older systems, right? They're very engineered without any designers in play. And it's a complaint I've had even with Power Apps for some time, that I feel like Microsoft has this big engineering team that works on the engineering of Power Apps. I would love it if they had an equivalent sized design team working on every feature and functionality in Microsoft when it comes to business applications. So where they have, the lead for the technology, they should have a lead for the design, because I think design is the most critical element in adoption and user experience. And why that's so important is that I would often say to my staff in the past, you put a field on a form and you've ticked a box because they said, hey, we need this field on the form.
Yeah.
But if you don't do it in the right location, or the data that's backing up that field is not presented in the right format, what took you 10, 15 minutes to put in place could create 5 years of heartache for the person using that bit of software. They could be cursing under their breath for the next 5 years because you ticked I needed to put a field on a form, and I chose this format. But if you don't think of the experience that it's going to create for the person using it, I think good software disappears. In other words, it's so good that you don't have to think about it. And, I read this book back in my web design days, which was called Don't Make Me Think. And it's a book that applies today in what we do in software development. And good software, you shouldn't have to think about it. It should be so intuitive. It comes naturally, and it's an absolute pleasure to work with. And so that's, my goal is, will we ever reach the day of software that is business software that's addictive? Could it get to that point that it becomes so, it's just so empowering in your role that you just want to use it because it's empowering. And recently I had somebody on my podcast that worked on a big project, and their mandate, or what they were given, was for every field that a salesperson has to fill in, you need to give 3 benefits back for that data.
Right.
So you need to offer 3 times the value of the input of the salesperson, because then the salesperson's going to want to put in the data because they're going to get 3 benefits back that will enhance their role. And just like when you think about something like that, and you think about where we've gone with things like customer data platform and Microsoft, is that you can, ID a customer, for example, and then if you've got digital assets, out on the internet, and an individual clicks on that asset, and maybe the link has come from something like LinkedIn, you now have the visibility over where that individual is. And so I saw an example recently. I was pursuing an account. So I talked with Microsoft about this account, and they were able to bring up, and under the auspices of this account, see all the digital assets that any employee that was listed on LinkedIn in that account had clicked on a Microsoft asset, maybe watched a video on Learn, Microsoft Learn. They might have watched a video there on Docs, and they know that. They know that Mark Smith watched this video, and therefore when they pull up Mark Smith as a record, they can go, hey, on all the Microsoft assets, because it's all been tracked, right? Yeah. I've been researching Power Automate. I've been researching CDP. I've been researching. And then, so when they engage with this account, they're not going with, what's your problem?
Yeah, exactly. You're going in and know what your problem is, and here is how we're going to be able to resolve it.
Exactly.
One of the things you just said took me back to when I attended your 90-day mentoring challenge, because you mentioned a book. And one of the things that I loved about doing that challenge was that at least 5 or 6 books you'd recommend each week. And I'd be like, oh, but I don't have time to read all of these. And I know that that's something that you would be reading so much all the time. You've got these sort of great resources. So I saw your tweet earlier today where you said that you've got 400 people that have registered.
How nuts is that, right?
Are you able to take everyone in? Or I know from the last time there's a bit of a selection process, or people almost kind of like weed themselves out.
Yeah.
If they don't attend your first session, or, they don't attend certain things. But is that even a number that you can manage?
Let's give it a go, eh? So what's interesting is that, I started this when I was in London, and I looked at people that were doing mentoring in the MVP community. And one of the things is that all the mentoring was always in person. And I didn't even know COVID was coming. But I was like, if I do it in person, I am one of the things I'm always big on is how can we scale something? How can we leverage it? How can we make it available to more people, and not kind of, how do we be more inclusive at the end of the day? And I'm talking about inclusivity around countries that don't necessarily have people with expertise, but they have access to Microsoft technology and want to do great things. So from the get-go, right, in my flat in London, I set this up as always to be online, right? So, and this was like, this coming year will be my 5th year. 2022 will be the 5th time I do this program. And I can remember in London there, it was a Thursday, and I was like, you know what? Just stop thinking about it. Just do it. So I jumped on my computer, put up a page, and with a form on it. And it just had a, Forms Pro form back then. I think they call it Customer Insight. What do they call it now? Customer Voice? No idea. So I put that up, and I just said, hey, let's see who's interested. And 60 people signed up, and I think about 30 people in that first year. And if I look at each year since, there's been around 100 people that sign up. This year, over 400, in fact, my favorite number, 420 as of today, have signed up. And the crazy thing is with that, it's so many countries that are attending that, I often ask, do they sell Biz apps? Do they sell Power Apps in your country, And so that's what's been amazing for me is that, these folks from all over the world are really changing their careers. And what excites me the most is that I get this feedback from people when their career changes. And it's because they've gone through the 90-day mentoring challenge and put a plan in place. They've got some real clarity. The other day I had to put an internal presentation together about the 90-day mentoring challenge for IBMers, particularly our offshore teams, and really encourage them around, where could they go? They're in these countries where there's a massive world out there, and sometimes they haven't looked at that. And so I counted up over 36 people that have been through the program are MVPs now. which I was like, wow, I had never counted those up. About
That's
5
really,
people
that's
now.
really
Hey,
impressive.
yeah,
I was
five,
going to
five,
say 36. Wow.
yeah, 5 work for Microsoft. In
Yeah.
fact, I was talking to this lady the other day in Australia, who I'm tending to poach, and I was like, I was just having a casual conversation, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I really loved the 90-day mentoring challenge when I went through it," and I'm like, shivers, you're an MVP, and like I didn't even know that you went through the 90-day mentoring challenge, because there's so many people, there's 400 in this round. I am not going to remember every face and every detail when there's that many folks coming through the program. And so I tend to really run it, as like a fire hose. And this year I was going to do something quite different. This coming year I was only going to do live the first session and the last session,
right?
But I'm going to do them all live again, because I've got recordings for everything, and
yeah,
as you can imagine,
part of it is that interaction. Not only the interaction with you, but it's the interaction with everyone else as well. And I guess obviously you're the one that's steering it, but it wouldn't be the same if even if everyone else was live and attending and watching at the same time. If we were all watching you as a recording, I don't think it wouldn't have the same vibe. It wouldn't have the same level of encouragement of everyone wanting to chip in or provide thoughts, ideas, solutions, whatever. I mean, I've told you this before. Going through that for me was massive in my career in terms of me, because I attended when I was MVP already, because I thought, I don't know it all. I know this. I know my area. I know what I do. But I know that I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. So I think for me, that's one of the biggest things. Is if somebody's just doesn't know what they want to do, but knows they're not happy doing what they're doing. Yeah. It's a massive, massive push for that, because it really makes you step back and think and focus on what is it that I love? What is it that I don't like? Even if you only know what you don't like, that's a massive deal, isn't it? Because at least you can then eliminate those things and say, right, I don't like that. I don't like that. Never do that again. So when do you start it? So as of today, all those 420 people will be in. So what I've done is that I've purposely created some barriers to entry, right? Because I want people that are really serious about, change. And so what I did is that I let people register their interest. That doesn't mean they're in the program. As of the 1st of December, which will probably be American 1st of December, which is actually tomorrow. Yeah. I'm using the same platform as you do for your training, and it will send out an invite to register. And part of that registration process is a massive questionnaire. And just a little insight, I tend not to read most of the questionnaires. Probably 99% of them I don't read. The thing is, the questionnaire is for the individual to really think about where are they going in their career? What are they trying to do? Because sometimes people are just not honest with themselves. And so the question is very probing about how did you get to here, and where do you want to go, and what does your career look like from that perspective? And it is to get them to really self-assess. And that's why it's difficult. That's why I put the questionnaire. I hate questionnaires. I hate filling out forms. But I did it on purpose because I know that this is going to cull a bunch of people out. Absolutely. That are not going to commit the time to, you said I give a fire hose of stuff to learn. People have 2 weeks between each of my delivery sessions, and they're like, that's still not enough time to cover everything that I land. And the thing is that I want people, what I found, if people are motivated and serious about changing their career and committing, a considerable amount of time over those 3 months, which will be from January the 1st through to the end of March, I want to make sure that only those that are really committed, and I'm not saying that life doesn't get in the way, right? I've had people where tragedy has happened during the 90-day mentoring challenge. That happens, and I'm definitely, I don't watch that people complete. I'm very much of the opinion, and the way I manage and stuff, I'm not here to be your dad. I'm not here to be your teacher. I'm not here to be did you get this done? I'm going to provide the content, but I expect you to be a self-manager of your time, yourself. And there's no kind of well, if you don't do it, you don't complete. That's up to you. But it's a journey of the individual. it's my journey. It's not your journey. It's mine.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
if I don't go through and put in the effort, then it more fool me for not taking advantage of the resources, the time and energy that you're putting forth. So we're getting close to time. So what I'd like to say is that I hope it goes. I know it'll go well because you're delivering it, but I hope all 420 people actually fill out the form and you have that many people, because that would be incredible to know that you've touched and impacted that many people, and made a difference, I think. And if they're serious about changing their career, it really, really will make a difference for them, I think. I love that you're still doing it.
Yeah, it's exciting. And of course I feed off the energy of everybody, engaging and stuff. So yeah, it's exciting. And I mean, I think 22 is going to be an amazing year. Will we get to meet in person a bit more? I don't know.
I hope so. We're hoping to go to America in February, but now I'm thinking things are changing in the UK again. I'm like, oh, were we too optimistic there?
Because I'm on all the email lists still from London. I just got the tube notification this morning going, fully masked, etc., back on the tubes, and I'm like, whoa, it's definitely changing again in London.
It's changing again. So yes, I'd quite like to live in a compound like yours and be away from everybody. And
I tell you, it's an amazing decision. Just best decision ever. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. I know it's really early for you, so enjoy the rest of your day. And good luck with the mentoring challenge.
Time to go get a Christmas tree.
Yes.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of 365 Community Chats. I'm your host, Megan V. Walker, and I'll be back soon chatting with someone else from the Power Platform, Dynamics and Microsoft community. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell for notifications.